This video is a brain dump of everything I've learned about sewing machines. Editing Corn, show us the menu. Perfect, thank you. As you can see, we'll be starting off real simple by just threading the machine, and by the end we'll be taking this thing apart and fixing some of the more common problems that can occur. You know, it's a big decision. You're about to get into this new hobby. But luckily, I've got the answer for you, so drum roll, please. And doesn't matter. Let's get one that works. But jokes aside, there's three things that I look for. First, is it sturdy? So spinning this wheel on the side here, does it feel nice and tight? Like, is it responsive the way it should be? Fantastic, that's what we want. If it's loose and worn out and wobbles, it's not so good. Or spinning the various dials and things, if it clicks nicely, feels rigid, we've got a great machine. Does it perform the basic functions well? And by that I mean, can you sew in a straight line? And does it do a zigzag stitch? And if you can do both of those, that's 99% of everything I've ever done. And finally, cost. And by that I mean, be cost effective. Don't spend a lot of money on a new machine. Personally, I say buy secondhand. These are simple mechanical devices that work well with time. I paid $50 for this one, $60 for this one. These are all I've ever owned. They both work great. Get something used. A sewing machine performs one simple task, and that's interlocking two threads. So with that in mind, we need some up top and some below. So we're going to start down here. Let's go ahead and place our thread on this sticky thingy. There should be some sort of a loop thing here, so let's just go ahead and put that in there. I pinch the thread between my thumb and the edge of the bobbin. I wrap it around and then subsequently go over top of that first bit so that it holds it all in place. I put the bobbin on top of this little nib here, and then I flick it over to engage it. And then just test to make sure it winds on properly. And then finally, just press the presser foot and spin it on till it's full. Pop it into the casing. This little lever holds it in place so that it doesn't fall out. Pull the thread into this gap here and out here. Make sure you got some extra thread hanging out. Holding that lever, we pop the bobbin in and it should click into place. Tuck in all the thread and close it up. If your machine looks more like this, you're just going to slide that open. I look for that little gap, which is right there. And then I just pull that through to the end. There we go. Make sure all the thread is underneath and then close it up. Threading the top of the machine, I usually find comes down to 3 steps, and it's essentially a down, up, down technique. First, the loop at the top, down and around through the thread tension adjuster. Your machine may or may not have this spring and this hook. And if they do, first around the spring and then down and under the hook. From here we head up and through the take-up lever. And then finally all the way down, and there's probably 2 hooks here. In my case I got one right here, another one right there. Through the eye of the needle. Pull it tight. In between here, the presser feet. And voila. While I hold this thread with one hand, I spin the wheel on the side and go 1 full revolution. Back up again so that I can pull through the thread from underneath. And there we go. Next, the various knobs and dials. And there's two that I think are common to all machines and also what I consider the most important. First, stitch length, and that's the gap between where the joins happen. The lower the number, the tighter, the bigger, well, the greater the gap. And the general rule of thumb is with lighter weight or more delicate fabrics, we want that closer together. And as we get to the heavier, bulkier ones, or we're using thicker threads, we go wider with that gap. The second one is the width of the zigzag stitch. And it basically is what it says on the tin, you know? But a combination between that one and the stitch length allows us to do like really wide separate zigzags, but then we can also bring it together really tight and narrow to do tacks. Or even, if you don't have the buttonhole feature, it can be used for that. As for needles, there's various options to choose from, and different ones are going to make sense in different situations. The two main needles I find myself using are universal and ballpoint needles. Universals are good for most type of woven fabrics, and they're graded on a size chart. Editing Corn, if you could show those, whatever side. And it essentially goes from the smallest number being for very fine fabrics down to the largest number for thicker fabrics. And so somewhere in there, you'll find what you need. And the difference in the needle is that it gets pointier and pointier the bigger the number gets. Essentially, you just need to pierce through that thick stuff. It's more durable. You just poke it through, you know? Ballpoint needles are used for knits, so things like jerseys and stretches and stuff like that. And essentially, the idea being that with the rounded edge, it's not going to pierce or damage the threads of the fabric. So a ballpoint needle will slip around the threads of the fabric as opposed to damaging them or even cutting them. If that does happen, it's much more likely to unravel. We can even get one of these double needles, which serves the purpose of a faux cover stitch. A cover stitch is one of those that you see along the bottom of a t-shirt, and it essentially serves two purposes. A, it hems the bottom, but also finishes the raw edge of the fabric on the inside. Using it is pretty easy. We just put in an extra bob and a thread and run it right along with the other one. You can go down the rabbit hole and find a whole bunch of other specialty needles, but these I find are the main ones that can be used for the bulk of projects. I also change my needles every 2 to 3 projects or after about 10 to 12 hours of use because turns out the points can get damaged quite easily. And if there's little nicks or little burrs on there, it'll catch the threads of the fabric and create those really ugly little pulls in the fabric. Don't want that. So I change proactively rather than reactively. Pro tip, buy them in bulk. I personally, and I don't like to recommend it, but get them from Jeff's little online convenience store because there's all kinds of options and I can get a whole lot for the same price as if I bought the little plastic packet in my local shop that only has 5 needles in there, you know? This is the standard presser foot most machines come with. It can handle all the stitches the machine does, straight stitches, zigzags, the decorative ones. We just flick to release, which we can now swap out for, say, this zipper presser foot. Just press again, put it up, release, and boom. The benefit being that the side is open, which means we can get much closer to the ridge of the zipper. This little cutout is here, so it can even sit on top of the ridge of the zipper. And of course we can choose which side we sew on, and voila, look at that. Perhaps you want to sew an invisible zipper. For that, we've got this little guy. With this one, we've got these little grooves where the teeth of the zipper can slide in between, And once again, it allows us to get real close to the edge here. This one's for sewing buttonholes. And these lines at the top here are all 5 millimeters apart. And then we've got this little arrow here, so we can measure exactly how big we want to do our buttonhole. This rubber at the bottom helps to just hold the fabric even better in place so we don't get puckering or pulling. This is called a straight stitch foot. These little markings here are so that you can use them as little guides to follow along to get nice, precise straight lines. And because you're only sewing in a straight line with these, we don't need that empty space here. And by reducing that space, it reduces the chances of things puckering and pulling in this area, which is perfect for lighter weight fabrics. This weird looking one is an adjustable foot. We can adjust the foot to wherever we want it to be and then just tighten it once we got it where we want. This puppy's been a game changer for me though. It's called a walking foot. This is called a feed dog. And essentially what those little teeth do is pull the fabric along as you're sewing. What this pressure foot does is add that same functionality, but on top. If you've ever tried sewing knits, stretches, jerseys, those sorts of things, those two layers, trying to keep them even is impossible. But now, thanks to both of them being pulled along at an even amount, it's a miracle. In this case, we take off the whole presser foot, unscrewing on the side here. We attach this lever first. We just slide that onto the bar where we loosen and tighten the needle, then shimmy it on and around where that screw was initially. Screw that back in. Let's of course make sure to use a ballpoint needle. And even those are just a small selection of the myriad of options out there. There's something for every use case. Just Google and it's like a candy shop. Of all of mine though, I honestly only use the regular one, the zipper one, and the knit one. These numbers here are for seam allowance. So 3 stands for 3/8 of an inch, 4/8 of an inch or a half, 5/8, and 6/8, which is 3/4. And then another 5 on this side because, well, it seems 5/8 is the standard. Next is the thread tension. And if we're doing lighter weight fabrics or delicates, we want the thread to be a little looser. And if it's heavier or we're doing thicker layers, maybe we increase it a little bit. For the top one, we just spin this dial right here. And in my case, a bit of a giveaway there. And then for the bobbin, we just use a little screwdriver and turn that right there. And even a quarter turn will make a noticeable difference in my case. If your machine looks something like this, you'll probably find the screw somewhere on the outside, like right there. And to test if we got it right, we just give both threads a little tug, and it should be roughly even. This is an example of getting the tension wrong. The thread looks like it's one line, and in fact, there's little green bumps of the thread being pulled through from the other side, which means the tension on this side is much too high in comparison to the other side. This stitch, on the other hand, we want to tighten things up quite a bit. It's rather loose and wobbly. Even these ones, you see how they're sort of side slashed along here? We'd want to tighten this up too, because even that's a bit loose. We can also adjust the amount of pressure in between the presser foot and the feed dog. Somewhere at the top, you'll probably have a dial to increase or decrease the amount of pressure. And with mine, I can even release the pressure altogether. This other machine has a dial to do the same thing. A little harder to turn though. Come on. Ay, ay, ay. With lighter fabrics, I like to reduce that pressure a little bit. Otherwise, it can all get too much and overstretch the fabric. With thicker cottons and denims and those sorts of things, I increase it a little bit more so it pulls it along nicely. But then when I did my wool coat, it all got to be so thick that in some instances I had to reduce it so that it could actually make its way through. Quick side note, have you been looking for an online sewing community? Well, if so, head on over to Patreon, join me there, and that should give you access to the Discord server where we chat on an almost daily basis. And thank you to those of you who have already joined me. This applies to both straight stitches and zigzags. There's two things we should try. First, check your needle. Make sure it is the right type of needle for the fabric you're using. I once did this with a neoprene, wasn't working great, switched it up, boom, sewed fantastic. I covered all this a little earlier, but if the problem persists, well, we've got a timing issue. By timing issues, what I mean is that the up and down motion of the needle isn't properly synced with the spinning of this wheel bit underneath here. What this little wheel does is that as the needle goes down and under, it catches the thread from the needle, spins it around here, catches our bobbin thread, and that is how we get our link for sewing. First, I'm going to pop off this plate. Just slides in real easy. And then there's a little lever here to open up and take out the bobbin holder. It's this little point here that does all the work. When it's properly adjusted, as the needle is going down and it gets all the way to the bottom of its rotation, it kind of hangs out for a little bit and then it starts to make its way back up again to the top. And just as it starts making its way up to the top, you're going to see that little point appear. And it's going to pass behind the needle right there. You see that little point there? It's passing up. And the reason why we want it at this point is in the early portion of the needle going up, the thread goes slack, and then that little point can grab the thread and pull it around. And so when we need to fix it, we can adjust the position of where this circular wheel is sitting in the rotation. And to make that adjustment, we simply go underneath to here. And that's what it looks like from the underside. To adjust it, I simply loosen these screws here. Now notice how I can spin this wheel independent of the full mechanism. I adjust it to where it appears to be in the right position, tighten up the screws, and then give it a try. And I find this to be a real finicky process. It's real trial and error. Make a little adjustment, try sewing, see if it's good. If not, adjust, see what that does, adjust, and so on and so forth until, just right. With this machine, the concept is exactly the same. That's our point right there. But instead of doing a full revolution, it goes just far enough to bring the thread over, and then it rocks back again to the start point, and then repeats. And if the problem still persists, well, take it to a professional. Maybe you just weren't meant to be a mechanic, Better at making things, not fixing things. But now you know how it works, so. Finally, maintenance. If we take care of our machines will take care of us for decades to come. And by maintenance, I specifically mean oiling the various moving parts. How much depends on the amount of usage. Me, I do it once or twice a year. I recommend getting something geared specifically towards sewing machines. Mine comes with this nice zoom spout so I can easily get to all those tricky spots. We want to put oil wherever there's sliding parts or joints. So I would put a little bit right here. I only need one drop, just like that. I would do it here as well, probably there. I undid these two screws, and then I can get in here as well. I'd put some oil here as well, probably some over here. I find the general rule of thumb is anywhere where there's moving parts rubbing up against each other somehow and creating friction, they need oil. And you definitely don't need a lot. 1 drop is plenty. If you do too much, it starts to drip. You could stain your fabrics, your threads, and well, it's a mess to clean up. Less is definitely more. The good news is every machine comes with some sort of a manual that has illustrations of exactly where to oil, with little arrows pointing at it, what bits you got to undo to get at them. It's all detailed for you. But Cornelius, I bought this thing secondhand. I don't have a manual. Good news. Chances are it exists somewhere online. For all the machines I've owned, I simply Google the manufacturer, followed by the model number, tack on manual PDF, something of that sort on the end, and boom. Now, some cases you might find it for free. Other instances, you might have to pay a couple bucks for access on one of these manual websites. Thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon. Special shout out to these top tier supporters. Hopefully that helped enlighten you a little bit more on how these sewing machines work. If you have any additional questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. I'll try my best, but no guarantees. But maybe. Or if you just want to get to know me a little bit more, check out the various links in the description.